You probably read today the story about Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran. And we've been strong. I want them to succeed. I want them to end up being a great country, frankly, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this. There's two steps. There's a very, very nice step, and there's a violent step. The violence like people haven't seen before. And I hope we're not going to have to do this. I don't want to do the second steps. We're in very serious negotiations with Iran for long-term peace. And if we do that, it'll be fantastic.
President Trump speaking on Iran at a business roundtable in Doha, Qatar this morning. The country reportedly ready to make a deal on its nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions being lifted. Joining me now is former CIA station chief and Fox News contributor Daniel Hoffman. Dan, great to see you. Your reaction?
Well, the question is what that deal would entail. Would Iran agree not to enriching uranium anymore? That's been the demand from the Trump administration. And then what, if any, sunset clauses would be associated with the deal? We still haven't heard a lot about Iran's ballistic missile program, as well as their support to proxy terrorists. I think that we're in the position now, a better position than arguably ever before, to strike a favorable deal for our national security. Iran, their air defenses have been destroyed by Israel, and Israel has also decimated Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran's proxy terrorists. We've taken the fight to the Houthis. So there's an opportunity for a deal, but as the president rightly points out, if a deal doesn't get made, then we have that threat of military action that we may have to use.
Well, should we be trusting the Iranians when they say we're willing to do a deal and perhaps not enrich uranium?
Well, definitely not trusting them. To sort of paraphrase President Reagan, I guess I would say rather than trust and verify, I would mistrust and verify. We're going to need a lot of inspections and a lot of people on the ground to ensure that Iran is complying with whatever deal that we agree to.
Yeah, and of course, President Trump knows that. But let me get your take on the big meeting today in Turkey. Ukrainian officials meeting with Russians in Istanbul this morning for discussions on ending the war between those two countries. Ukrainian President Zelensky is set to be there. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he's not going, but he sent a junior delegation of advisors. Zelensky described that move as decorative. President Trump is not attending. Watch this.
No, I didn't anticipate. I actually said, why would he go if I'm not going? Because I wasn't going to go. I wasn't planning to. I would go, but I wasn't planning to go. But we have people there. Marco, as you know, is doing a fantastic job. Marco's there, Secretary of State, and we have people there. But I didn't think it was possible for Putin to go if I'm not there.
Dan, what can come out of this meeting, do you think? And what is your take on the fact that Putin won't even go?
Yeah, so the original discussion was about Putin and Zelensky meeting, and President Trump rightly said that he would show up and join those meetings. Putin deliberately sent, as you said, a junior delegation led by his presidential aide, Vladimir Medinsky. Putin wants to carry on Istanbul negotiations from 2022 with unreasonable demands on Ukraine, that there would be limits on the size of Ukraine's military and no foreign military assistance for Ukraine, obviously no NATO membership, no peacekeepers in Ukraine, all things that are untenable, that don't provide Ukraine any sort of security guarantees that Russia won't launch an attack in the future. What Putin wants is to create the appearance of carrying on negotiations while simultaneously he inflicts harm on Ukraine by carrying on this barbaric war. He doesn't want the secondary sanctions that Senator Lindsey Graham is talking about delivering against Russia. And he's trying to maybe forestall any U.S. congressional action against Russia.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been watching President Trump on the world stage this week. It's been an historic trip to the Middle East. Of course, he said that he would lift the sanctions on Syria. He's asking Syria to normalize relations with Israel and join the Abraham Accords in exchange for dropping those sanctions on the country. The president discussed that earlier today as well. Here's a bit. Watch.
We took out the sanctions, and that's been, I didn't even realize it's been many, many years that they've had sanctions. And as you know, there was a very big change at the top And I thought that we have to give them a chance. They really have no chance with the sanctions. They were very biting. I met the new leader of the country, and he's got a strong past. I'll be very nice. He got a strong past, but I liked him a lot. I think he'll be a great representative, and we'll see. But we're going to give him a fighting chance by taking off the sanctions.
Another trust but verify situation here with Syria, Dan, right?
Yeah, and the Congress will have to lift those sanctions while simultaneously we deal with a lot of very challenging issues with Syria, including any terrorists in Syria. We're looking for that new Syrian government to work with us against terrorist threats to our nation. Chemical weapons are still in Syria. We have to deal with that. Also, Iranian militias and ensuring that Syria is no longer used as a land bridge for Iran to provide material support to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So there are a lot of outstanding issues. Behind the scenes, Maria, I expect that John Ratcliffe's Central Intelligence Agency operatives are working closely with their Syrian counterparts in the General Intelligence Directorate on those specific issues. And that's what's likely happening so that we can determine the extent to which Syria is really serious about working with us. But the president has offered a major carrot, and I think that's potentially going to influence Syria's decision-making in a positive way.
He sure has. And, I mean, you just went through a whole list of things we've got to be aware of with regard to Syria. But when you look at what this president has been able to do, even just looking at the Abraham Accords that he put in place in his first term, now asking the Saudis to join the Abraham Accords. I spoke with General Jack Keane earlier this week and posed the question to him. Watch this. The president said he was this close to getting Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. Do you think that can be achieved in this term?
Yes, I think it's absolutely possible. It's certainly how the war ends in Gaza is really an issue here. The Saudis were very close to it, and it was a primary reason for, not the primary reason, but it was one of the reasons that Hamas attacked, because they saw normalization on the horizon taking place. And that was the reality of it, and that's why Iran so strongly supported what Hamas was doing.
It's pretty incredible, Dan. What do you think?
I agree with General Keane. Look, Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler, has emphasized that there won't be further discussion about the Abraham Accords until there's a Palestinian state or movement towards a Palestinian state. And General Keane's right. That was certainly strategically the impetus behind Iran supporting Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on Israel. So that we've got to get to some sort of a solution in Gaza, I think, before we move forward. But the fact that we're discussing this now is important because it's all part of this kaleidoscope of the Middle East where everything is so intricately interwoven. And that's the challenge that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has to deal with, along with the rest of the folks in the administration implementing the president's strategy.
All right. We'll be getting updates from the Secretary of State over the coming days. Dan Hoffman, always good to see you, sir. Thank you.